Hey, how you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
Perfect.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
How are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you for taking the time first and foremost. We really appreciate you having, taking the time for you to show up here and be able to talk to us and talk to our viewers as well. So
Thank
thank
you for reaching out. I really appreciate it. Glad to be here.
absolutely. So yeah, I mean we starting already. We're gonna go live in matter of seconds. Um, First and foremost, we want to thank you once again for being here. I'm just trying to get my stuff together. I'm sorry. Um, we are really proud of what we're doing here in Wisconsin. We understand the importance of the Latino vote, and especially in these elections. We believe that on these elections, we are going to be crucial, especially in cities like Madison and Milwaukee, with our vote to get and elect our next governor. So with further ado, then I want to thank you again. Good morning, everyone that's watching us today on Noticias Wisconsin. We have a very special interview in our Road to Government 2026. Today we have, with further ado, Missy Hughes. She is a former CEO of Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. She's been around for many, many years in Wisconsin, doing good stuff for the community as well. And we would like for you, first of all, to let us know a little bit more about Missy, who you are and why you're here.
Great. Well, thank you so much for giving me the chance to be here. And especially thank you for engaging in this incredibly important decision we have for Wisconsin as we choose our new leadership in November and making sure that we're doing everything we can to move Wisconsin forward. So, I'm Missy Hughes, and I live in Southwest Wisconsin over by La Crosse, where I've raised my three children. I have twins and a third. So, I have two 25-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, and then a younger son. And my husband continues to live in the southwest of the state while I travel all around and have a chance to talk to Wisconsinites. I've been doing that for the last 6 years, working for Governor Evers, as you said, as the secretary and CEO of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. For folks who don't know, WEDC, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, is the state's leading economic development agency. So I worked all around the state, working with communities and business economy so that everyone in Wisconsin has the opportunity to succeed. Prior to joining Governor Evers' administration, I worked for Organic Valley, which is a dairy cooperative. You've probably seen Organic Valley in your stores. It's owned by farmers. So for 17 years, I worked for farmers, helping them every day to stay on their farms and be able to pass their farms on to the next generation. And, in that work, I got to make sure that the organic standards stayed very strong. I worked in Washington, D.C., fighting big ag and fighting chemical companies. But really, at the end of the day, my role was to make sure that farmers succeeded and make sure that the employees of Organic Valley succeeded. And, we took into consideration making sure we were providing incredible food for people and also protecting the environment. So when Governor Evers decided not to run, I made the choice to throw my hat in the ring because I believe that my skills and experience working in every community in the state, in every region of the state, and having impact is really what we need for the next governor of the state. Wisconsin is incredibly diversified and there's so much going on. I feel that there's so much positive going on, and we need to lift that up and make sure that as our communities are trying to improve themselves, the state government is here to support them and get out of the way when government needs to get out of the way, but show up with resources to assist with things like housing and childcare, transportation. When a community makes a decision that they need to build housing, the state government should be there to support and help make it happen as quickly as possible. I have presented a plan for really getting the Wisconsin economy moving. I call it Unlock Wisconsin because as I talk to Wisconsinites right now, they feel like there are barriers to their success. It's hard to have housing, it's hard to start a business. So the goals that I've set in Unlock Wisconsin include creating 50,000 new businesses because as secretary, I saw that Wisconsinites are hungry to try themselves at a small business, whether it's plumbing or being an electrician or opening, a small business. Whatever it is, Wisconsinites are excited to take their ideas and bring them to market. And I want to help that happen. So I set a goal of 50,000 businesses in my term. And I think that's really realistic because I helped 9,500 businesses with our Main Street Bounce Back program get started all around the state. And so I believe that there is such opportunity for starting businesses, and whether they stay small or whether they grow into some of our biggest businesses. If you think about the big businesses we have in Milwaukee, whether it's Milwaukee Tool or Fiserv, those all started as an idea. And so we want to help support that continuing. I also set the goal of building 200,000 homes. Seems like a crazy number, but you got to put out a big goal and then work to meet that. And I have seen housing being built all around the state. Here in Milwaukee, I've seen, buildings getting renovated and turned into homes that are available, for all income levels. And I just think it's incredibly important that we continue to build homes and we put that as a North Star. And then finally, I'm really responding to what I hear from Wisconsinites who are working 2, 3 jobs. They're um, doing a number of different things to try to make ends meet and still feeling like they're not making ends meet. And so I want to get them the training that they need in order to be able to get better paying jobs. We looked into it, and by providing training to someone who's currently in a lower skilled job, getting them into a higher skilled job, we can change the game for them. We can increase their income by $45,000 a year, which, if you go from $40,000 a year to $85,000 a year, that is game changing in your life. And we want to help make that happen. And we have an incredible tech college system in Wisconsin that can really push that forward. So my goal is to have 100,000 more Wisconsinites in our tech colleges every year getting the training that they need. The last thing I'll say, and then I'd love to have a discussion, I've been talking a lot, I know,
No
is
worries.
I believe we need to make a big investment in childcare. Childcare is something that, again, is really holding Wisconsinites back, whether it's making the decision not to have children because you can't afford childcare, or really struggling to find quality, affordable, and access to childcare for your children. So my investment will make it more inexpensive for families and cap the costs that they have, potentially saving up to $20,000 a year on childcare, and then also making sure we are recruiting and training more childcare workers, but also keeping those that we have. Right now, childcare workers are underpaid and they're not able to receive benefits. And so they're leaving that career, even though they really want to be in that career. So we want to make sure that those providers are supported with benefits and good wages. Childcare is a public good. Taking care of a child from birth until they graduate from 12th grade is our responsibility, and we need to do that really well in Wisconsin. We need to, once again, be the education state, be the state that's taking care of our children. And I'm really excited to be the governor that leads that work. So again, that was a lot. Thank you. I want to dive in and have a good conversation.
No, absolutely, and that's good. That's exactly the idea. We want to make sure our viewers, our followers know who you are, and then they make an intelligent decision based on that, and not just ads or just people that they know. That's our idea here, and the goal behind this. So yes, and I want to dive in some questions right away. I know that we have some for you, not many, but we definitely have some for you. So to begin with, you have emphasized that you are not a traditional politician. After 6 years in Tony Evers' administration, what lessons did you learn about how the system works in Madison that you plan to radically change or improve if you elected as a governor?
Well, what I've seen in working in Evers' administration, first off, he did a tremendous job in a very difficult situation, having a Republican legislature that stopped him at every move. He was an amazing goalie in a game of, having a lot of shots taken on him, and he had to protect the state, and he did a tremendous job doing that. What I really see is the opportunity now with fair maps, with a less divided legislature to move things forward and to stop just being on defense and having to stop everything, not making investments in our state. So I really look forward to working with the legislature to make investments in the state, to stop being in a place where you don't want to give the other team a win and saying what we want is for Wisconsin to win. And we're going to work together to make that happen. And that's really the biggest change that I bring. And one of the reasons I say, I'm not a traditional politician is because I've worked to get business done. I've worked to support farmers. I've worked, when you come at things with a business mindset, you are solution oriented and you're driving towards getting things accomplished and not necessarily just fighting with the other guy. And so I want to make sure that we are always looking for problem solving and solutions for Wisconsin.
Absolutely, and I definitely. I mean, I think that that's the goal and the idea for many of us. Some of us are tired of seeing fighting amongst each other.
For sure.
We have to come out to certain understanding. Obviously, there's gonna be some issues, but yeah, I mean, if you can work or try to work around those issues for the betterment of the people, that's what it matters, right? And that's why people get elected. So
Yeah,
yes,
Wisconsinites get along with their neighbors. They work out things out with their neighbors all the time. And
mm,
so then they look at their leadership and they're like, why can't you guys work something out here? It doesn't, it's like you they're so confused. And as I talk to Wisconsinites, the thing that they are so distressed about is the division and the constant battles. And they just want that to please, can you make that end? Is constantly what I'm asked.
absolutely. That's what we've been hearing as well here, and that's what we're passing it on as well.
Yeah, great.
So our second question is: you constantly talk about building a Main Street economy. For someone who lives in a big city, what exactly does that mean in terms of a short-term public policy?
Yeah, well, when I think about Milwaukee, I think about a series of main streets, right? Like there are so many different little neighborhoods and so many different areas. When I talk about a main street economy, it's really the idea that you can walk out your door to your job, to the education that you need, to the healthcare access that you need, and the childcare access that you need, that you don't have to travel an hour to be able to get to those things that you need to be successful, that you can stay in your community with your neighbors, with your family, and be successful. So for me, a Main Street economy is really rolling up your sleeves and working locally to improve what's happening so that Wisconsinites can really feel that success. It's one thing to say, hey, we're going to do something in Green Bay and that's going to have a benefit for the whole state, but for me it's really about rolling up your sleeves and doing things right at home.
Absolutely. Um, Once again, we're gonna kind of piggyback on something that we were talking about already, but since it's there in a state that is divided as Wisconsin, which it is, but I have, my doubts because we always trying to get along afterwards,
Yeah.
uh, where elections are decided by a razor thin margins. What is your main argument to convince independent or moderate voters that you are the most viable option?
Yeah, and I think we're agreeing that Wisconsin is actually much more purple than it is red versus blue. And as I talk to Wisconsinites, the first thing they're asking me is, "What are you going to do to help Wisconsin? What are you thinking about?" They're not asking me, "Are you a Democrat or are you a Republican?" They want to know, "How are you going to help move Wisconsin forward?" And as I think about being the best candidate to represent all of the state, it's because I live in rural Wisconsin, but I've done a ton of work in urban Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, Madison, Kenosha, Green Bay, Eau Claire. I'm a city girl at heart, even though I live out in the country with 70 sheep. I really feel, that I can bridge these conversations. And so I'm perfectly comfortable walking into a small town, into a community meeting in Anago, or working here in Milwaukee at a much bigger scale. And I think that for Wisconsinites, they want to know that someone is ready to work for the whole state. And they want to know that someone is moderate and thinking about success for everyone, thinking about the economy, especially. We had a recent Marquette poll that showed that lots of folks are undecided about who they're going to vote for, but they're really decided about wanting someone who is focused on growing an economy and thinking about making things more affordable. And that's what I present to Wisconsinites.
Great, great. As a former CEO of WIDEC, as we spoke before, you led a relief program during the pandemic. How do you plan to scale that support for small business today when the challenges are no longer pandemic survival, but inflation and operating cost?
Yeah, so during my time at WEDC, that was through the pandemic, as you said, and we were responsible for distributing lots and lots of resources to small businesses and businesses all around the state. In fact, Wisconsin was the #1 state in the country for delivering federal resources to small businesses and for economic development. So it's really important that we keep that mindset of what do small businesses need. And what we really learned was that businesses need help with everyday operations. And for me, that's the cost of inflation, the operating costs. And so thinking about how can we get the resources, not only access to capital, but also helping businesses with types of challenges they have, like how do I set up e-commerce, or how do I make sure that my cash flow is working. So making sure that businesses have the technical assistance. We worked with the Latino Chamber of Commerce a lot, and it was really, the chamber is tremendous at providing that kind of resources to small businesses. So supporting the organizations that support small businesses, but also, we spend an awful lot of money on big business in Wisconsin, and I think we can channel some of those dollars to small businesses, because what we saw is a small business will stretch a dollar way better than any big businesses. And so it doesn't take as much resources, but just a little bit will help really get the small businesses to a place where they're much more sustainable and much more stable than they are right now.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And for anybody that is joining us right now, we are with Missy Hughes. She's a candidate for the governor of Wisconsin. She's telling us a little bit about herself, her qualifications, and why should we vote for her on the upcoming primaries. Yes, so we're going to continue with our questions. If you want to have your own question or whatnot, you can add it in our live chat, and then we can pass it on to her, and we can go from there. But as we go forward, as Wisconsin faces demographic challenges, how do you propose as a governor to attract and retain young graduates from our universities so they don't migrate to another state?
Well, we had a lot of conversations at WEDC about bringing people to Wisconsin and attracting talent to Wisconsin. But what we realized is that if you can't retain the people that you have, you're not going to be able to attract more people here. So, by focusing really on quality of life in each of our communities and making sure that we have those fundamental things that will keep the folks that are already here, is critically important. So, what does that mean? It means good jobs. It means access to housing. It means having childcare. As young families are thinking about having children, but they look around and they realize they're not going to be able to continue to work and to have childcare, they might look elsewhere to say, I'm going to go find someplace where it's easier to raise my family than it is right now in Wisconsin. But just having strong communities, having places where people can gather, having arts and music and culture is incredibly important. So, rather than spending resources on billboards and trying to attract people from Chicago or Detroit to come to Wisconsin, let's focus on making sure we're investing in ourselves, making our communities places where people really want to live and are excited to be here. And as I talk to Wisconsin companies, they want Wisconsin graduates because Wisconsin graduates stick around, they're team players, they solve problems. So, as I talk to Milwaukee Tool or to GE Healthcare, they are like, we want Wisconsin workers. And so it's critically important that we make sure that our graduates know that they have homes here and they have jobs here and they stick around.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I totally agree, and especially with our workers, Wisconsin workforce is one of the best. From the youth to the older ones, they are. We are so proud of them as well. So,
For sure.
yes. Under your leadership, the regional technology hub status from the biohealth was promoted. How do you translate these benefits so the rural Wisconsin communities also feel the economic impact of this multi-million dollar investment?
Yeah. So for your listeners, the BioHealth Tech Hub is something that we worked on under the Biden administration to get a designation for the state. As the Biden administration was looking around, they were saying, "We see great things happening all around the country. Let's provide some support." So we applied for the BioHealth Tech Hub, and we did that. The requirements were that you do it around a metropolitan area, and we were able to be the only one in the country that designated two metropolitan areas, so Milwaukee and Madison. But as we were applying for it and thinking about it, we were thinking about all of Wisconsin and the healthcare that and research and incredible work that's happening all around the state. And the BioHealth Tech Hub is engaging with tribes and how they're trying to provide healthcare to their members. It's working with, even though it's Madison and Milwaukee, it's working with Eau Claire because there's tremendous things happening with the Mayo Health Clinic and and UW Eau Claire on that side of the state. So even though the designation is for Madison and Milwaukee, the mindset as we went in was really, this is an all-in Wisconsin effort. And so it's exciting. I think especially to see the tribes engaged. I've met with tribes who have built healthcare facilities, and they call those healthcare facilities their war rooms because that's where they're taking care of their folks. That's where their power comes from. And I love that. And I think that, we need to continue to make sure we're including everyone in this conversation about how do we really change the game for healthcare for everyone.
Absolutely, and yeah, that was the idea on that one. Also, as we're speaking, to working with both parties, you were confirmed twice as by a Republican-led Senate. If you become a governor with an opposition-controlled legislature, what is your specific strategy for getting projects moving instead of getting bogged down in political gridlock?
Yeah, you're right. I was confirmed twice unanimously by the Republican Senate. I also worked for 6 years with a board that was 8 Republicans and 8 Democrats. So the board at WEDC was also split right down the middle. And what it means is that you have to find common ground and find ways for people to be able to talk to each other. That's what I love about talking about building the economy and economic development, because everyone loves good jobs and being able to sustain their families. And every legislator, whether they are Republican or Democrat, want to deliver that for their constituents. And so, even if I'm working with a divided legislature, I feel like I have the opportunity to talk about building a strong economy and how can we work together on that. And you'll ask any Republican legislator that I worked with over the course of the last six years to say, yeah, WEDC got stuff done. They were good to work with. I didn't worry about not giving someone the chance to cut a ribbon. If there was an exciting project in a district, bring the legislators there. Let's cut that ribbon together. So that's my mindset. Having worked for a cooperative for 17 years, I think about how do we make everybody win. I don't think about, it's about cooperation, not about competition. And so how can we just work together to make Wisconsin succeed?
Absolutely. I come from a labor movement, worked for labor for many, many years, so love it. And obviously, I've seen both sides of the picture in labor as well. And once again, long as you know how to work them and be together, things can move in a great way.
Yeah, I
Uh,
love that. There's so much between a cooperative and a union that is so similar. And so for 17 years, I was essentially, a cooperatives lawyer. I would say a union's lawyer. It's this decision to go to market together, to work together, to try to make everybody succeed.
No, absolutely. And co-ops is a great model actually and I believe is the future for the unions and the movement of the labor movement. It's something that you can own as a worker and you can move forward by yourself without having another corporation telling you what to do.
Right.
So with that being said, yeah, also in a Democratic primary with strong candidates, What do you do or propose that it truly sets you apart from your opponent's visions?
Well, I think, focusing on the economy and having the experience of having impact is really what sets me apart. I can point to any part of the state and say, I have been there, I have helped businesses, I have had impact to make projects happen in communities. I understand, how Lady Smith was able to build some housing. I understand how Kenosha was able to bring in a business or help a business expand. I've had impact all throughout the state. And I think that's really what makes me stand apart. I've done the job, I've done the work, and I've been in the governor's cabinet for 6 years, so I understand how all the different parts of the state government work together and can really come together for the benefit of Wisconsinites. And even if we have a divided legislature, there's still lots of opportunity to improve and do better when it comes to delivering government services and working on behalf of Wisconsinites. So there's so much opportunity there. And I think my experience really stands apart from the other candidates when it comes to that.
Absolutely. We're getting to the end of the interview. We got one closing question, which I'll bring up in a second. Well, first of all, for people that are joining us right now, we are live with Missy Hughes. She's a candidate for governor, and she's telling us about herself, her qualifications, and why should you vote for her. Um, I'm gonna sneak in a question before the closing question, and I usually do that. It's about Latino community as well. I wanted to know, in immigrants itself, do you have any ideas or any plans to work around, what's happening at this moment and the type of climate that we are living?
Well, I think there's both the challenge that we're facing right now with ICE and with what Donald Trump is doing to our immigrant communities that is un-American and just frankly, I can't think of a better word than disgusting. It is just untenable to continue this. And as governor, I would use every tool in the toolbox to stand firm, whether it's deploying National Guard, whether it's making sure that our local law enforcement understands their obligations to protect the immigrant community and to make sure that we are having really open communication and preparation in those situations. I see all around the state that kind of work being done at the local level where folks are saying, okay, if ICE comes, what are we going to do? I think that preparation and that communication is incredibly important. But I want to span out a little bit to say the immigrant community is incredibly important to Wisconsin. We are a state, besides for our 11 federally recognized tribes, we are a state of immigrants, and we have grown and been successful because of that. And making sure that every community knows that they are important to Wisconsin and part of our future success is so important. But I'll say specifically for the Hispanic community, it is the largest growing community in Wisconsin. And the business that I have seen come out of the Latino and Hispanic community, the hard work, the work ethic, the wanting to be a part of the state and being a part of the state is so incredibly valuable, and it always needs to be recognized. And I have so enjoyed working with the Latino Chamber of Commerce of Southeastern Wisconsin because I've been able to see the strength of the community, to participate in the strength of the community, and to do what we can to help support it. And so I just always think, we are a state of immigrants, and we need to recognize our history and then build on it.
Absolutely. Thank you for being so candid on that. For our last closing question is Wisconsin in 2030. So we already passed your, you got elected or whatnot. And let's say if you achieve your goals as a governor, what would a typical day will look like for a Wisconsinite at the end of your first term compared to today?
For me, it is a family living with stability and predictability and less stress. Right now, as I talk to Wisconsin families, the chaos that's coming from Washington is impacting their everyday lives. They don't know where they're going to, what's going to happen to their healthcare costs. They don't know how they could possibly save for a down payment for a home. They don't know if they have steady childcare, and they don't know when they go to the grocery store or now the gas station, how much their prices are going to increase and whether or not they're going to be able to afford what they're purchasing. 4 years from now, I want Wisconsinites to feel like they have steady housing, good jobs, and they know that their children are receiving the education that they deserve and that they have a vision for. And they're going about their everyday in an optimistic, looking forward to the future manner. And that's really where I see the change that we need to have. Wisconsinites know how to get through their day. They can, build businesses, they can build their and take care of their families, take care of their neighbors. But the stress that they're feeling right now is really impacting their ability to do that. So I want 4 years from now, Wisconsinites to be optimistic about the future, and for government to be there to help or get out of the way.
Amen. So thank you. I love your answer. Before we close the interview, anything that you would like to add or tell our voters on Wisconsin about you and why it's so important about these elections?
Well, the first thing I'll say, and thank you so much again for the time today, the most important thing we need to do is present a candidate to Wisconsin that will beat Tom Tiffany. Tom Tiffany is going to set this state backwards if he is elected governor in so many different ways, in ways very similar to what we see Donald Trump doing to the whole country. And so making sure, as you're thinking about who to vote for in August at the August 11th primary, think about someone who's going to win in November. To me, as a Wisconsinite, not as a candidate, I think it's so incredibly important that we make sure we keep that eye on the November prize, and really getting engaged. If you like a candidate, if you like a couple candidates, support them, jump in, or go hear what they have to say and listen to them. I think that's just incredibly important. If you want to know more about Missy, you can go to missyforgovernor.com, and we have a whole website. And please, follow what we're doing on Instagram and all the other little signs at the bottom of your screen, and you'll hear about what we're doing and where we're going to be.
Absolutely. At the end of the interview, we're also going to be putting in the links for your website, missyforgovernor.com. So we'll add that on there as well. So people, if you're interested and you like what she's saying and you want to know more about her, you can definitely follow up there or support her as well. Missy, thank you so much for the opportunity, seriously, and the clarity of your answers. To our audience as well, thank you for your questions, and remember that this is an information to exercise to help us and to be ready and to make an informed decision. See you in the next edition of Wisconsin News. Gracias, Missy. Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You as well.